Hey you guys, it's Teresa and welcome back to my channel. Today's another tag because I forgot there were 5 weeks in September and here we are. And that tag is my writing process tag. I will leave the video that I found down below as well as the original if I can find it. But let's just get into it because there are 20 questions. But before I hop into this video, I just wanted to say that I will not be posting a second video this week. I'll be out of town the day the video is supposed to go up. And I tried to fix my schedule so it worked a little bit, but like the last leg before I head out for the first Sunday just got really packed all of a sudden, so I'm just not going to stress myself out, and we'll go back to 2 videos next week. So the first question is, what genres do you write in? And I feel like I've answered this in quite a bit of like the writing tags that I've done thus far, but the genres I typically write in is new adult, high fantasy, urban fantasy, and I'll somehow mix in some magical realism in there. Like I said before, I can't really write contemporary. I've tried. I've like put my best foot forward and I forced myself, but I find it so hard to write and not include some kind of fantastical or magical element into it. So we are just stuck in this sphere until I broaden my horizon somehow in the future. But I've been trying for like the past 8 years to broaden into contemporary and it has not worked, so probably won't happen. Question number 2 is, what setting gets you the most productive? I feel like in terms of where I like to write, I don't really have a setting that gets me the most productive. I just have to be in the right mood, if that makes sense. Like, I can get myself in the right mood and sometimes it's music, sometimes it's a quiet room, sometimes it's after a shower or a nap. But there is no setting where I go to a coffee shop and get the most done, or if I just do it outside or in my bed, on the floor, in the closet. So I don't really have one. Question number 3. If you have multiple story ideas, how do you go about picking which one to start first? And this is a problem I've had recently, and I have my main work in progress that I'm currently editing, but I have other story ideas that I want to start and get those in the motion of planning and plotting and writing and crying over. But I struggle with this because I have an idea, and typically, like I said in my other writing tag, I start with characters and a scene. So if I don't have a character or a scene, I just kind of write snippets that come to me and then weave them all together in the end. So I can't really choose a story to write until I have a plot and I have characters and I can see where point A is going to point Z. If that makes sense. As long as I have the beginning and the ending, a rough idea of how I want that to look, I can pretty much get to where I need to go, but until then I'm just kind of stuck in limbo. This is now limbo. These hand gestures. Number 4 is, do you outline? And that's a weird yes and no question for me. Sometimes I outline to the point where I have chapter breakdowns for literally every chapter. Like when I first drafted this novel that I'm working on, my mirrors were covered in index cards of every single thing. But as of right now, I haven't outlined anything recently because I have been very focused, but I found that outlining does help me figure out my life, or at least a rough idea of what my life should look like while I'm writing. That made no sense, but in my brain it did, and that's all that matters. Number 5 is, do you start your first draft with pen and paper, typewriter, or computer? Computer. I like writing in pencil. I like the idea of writing down. I do write several little snippets on paper and just transfer them to my computer, but I find that I don't get as in-depth or as descriptive, and I don't have a feel for how I want the story to flow very well because I'm the kind of person who adds things as I go along. So if I write an entire page and I'm in the middle of the second one, if I get an idea for a previous part, I go back and do that. And with pen and paper, I have sticky notes and arrows, and I confuse myself when I go back to type it up. So computer just works best for my very cluttered brain. Question number 6 is, what do you do to get through writer's block? I cry. I don't really have a set idea of what to do to get through writer's block because I'm the kind of person that has to force myself out of everything, or else I just kind of sit there and percolate until I do nothing. So I cry for a while, I write down ideas, I keep windows open both mentally and physically, stick my head out the second story window screaming into it. But like I said, mainly I just kind of force myself to write because sometimes I can edit shit. I can take manure and put it into a plant and make the plant grow, but I can't take manure and throw it into dirt and expect something to grow out of it. So I just force myself to write, and sometimes it'll get my brain back to like flowing again into like the proper thing that I needed to do, or sometimes I'll just force it and then I'll edit it when I'm in a better mood. But there's no really like way for me to overcome writer's block. There's no ritual, there's no I'll take a bath with like lots of bubbles and like wine and champagne and that helps. No, I just kind of cry and force myself. Sometimes I'm typing and crying because I feel like everything I'm putting out is crap, but I need to put it out so I can fix the crap. And I just cry frustrated. I cry at everything. Really. Number 7 is, do you format your project from the beginning or worry about that later? I feel like this is for a manuscript situation. I do a bit of both. I format it in terms of like it's all indented, things are focused, and like I have the little pound symbol when the page break happens, chapters, and then, but I don't have it in like, what do you call it? I don't have it in double space. I don't have like a cover page for it. I add those later because like I don't read double spaced very well, so I can't edit it, and I know my friends don't either when they're reading it on the page. So I just like will put it in double space, let them have at it, and then I'll add a cover page when I'm done with like the draft that I'm sending out, if that ever happens. Number 8 is, do you edit your draft as you go or when you finish with the first draft? When I finished. I have edited as I went along, as I wrote, and I hated every single minute of it because I would just point out all the things that were wrong and the things that I had to fix, and I felt like I couldn't. It was a lot of mess for my brain to kind of work out, so I've learned that I have to just word vomit, and then we go back and edit the word vomit and then make it better. Because if I do go along, I cry. I feel like this is the moral, this is my how to like encompass Therese in one word is crying. So it's just a frustrating time when I like edit as I go along. So I have learned not to do it. I live by it. I suggest like anytime someone has the same issue that I am, I'm like, don't look at it until you are done with the first draft. Don't touch it. Don't worry about grammar or like misspelling. Fix it when you're done, because when you notice one mistake, it snowballs, and then you're focusing on the things that you can focus on when you're done, because then you know like how to get from, you know what's wrong from point A5, like 8.5 to get to point B. So it's just easier that way, but no one listens to me. Number 9, after finishing your drafts or / manuscript, how long do you give it a break before you go back over it, or do you give yourself a break at all? I have given myself different spans of breaks between my first and second draft. I believe I went from August to November, which was a nice thing, and then from my second to my third draft, I think I went from June to mid-August / early September. So it really just kind of depends on how I'm feeling about the draft. When I was done with the first draft, I was super excited and want to get back into it. So I didn't give myself a lot of time to do it. I read through everything. Oh, actually, I gave myself 2 weeks from the second to the first draft, because I had printed out my manuscript and started like editing on it. And then now I have taken like a good 3-4 month break from it and just didn't touch it. I just didn't look at it. Like I started like the bare bones of how I wanted the beginning to work out, but did not touch it. I gave it to my friends and was like, here, read it. And then didn't look at it, and when they emailed me back, I cried again, and then I went back into it around like August. So it really just depends on my mood and how I'm feeling about the previous draft. Question number 10 is there something that you prefer to do to get you through writing, like playing music, TV, having your favorite drink, or food? I like music. I like to playlist things. I like having music to kind of form the mood, primarily because I grew up playing music. Music is a very big part of my life, so when I write, I literally will sit there, like right now as I'm editing this, I know what scene comes next, and I will sit there for a good like 5-10 minutes looking through songs to add to the playlist, like have it play chronological. And then if I'm feeling really like anal about it, I will select 3 songs, put them in a separate playlist, hit repeat, so only those 3 songs for that scene work until the scene's done, delete that playlist and go back to the main one. Like I said, music just works well for my brain. It gets me focused. It gets me in the mood of the situation, the characters. It's weird. Question number 11 is, do you schedule your writing sessions? Yes and no. Sometimes I do schedule, like I'll put into my planner, like you're going to write this chapter today, you're going to write this much of this chapter. I used to do it a lot more where I would be like, at 10 p.m. you're going to write until like midnight, or however long I had before I had to go to bed for work the next day or school. But since I kind of work an 8 to 5 now and my schedule isn't as like topsy-turvy, I just kind of put in your writing today, and then like when I get to it, I'll get to it. And typically I really try, if it's in my planner, I will write and like set to it because I always feel nice checking it off. But if sometimes I'll just like have spare time and I'll just write without like having written it in. So it just depends on my mood. Right now it's written into my planner because I really need to finish this chapter, but other times I just kind of like pick up my computer and go, well, I'm writing today. Not question number 12 is, do you have word count or chapter goals for your writing sessions? No. I used to have word count goals when I drafted my first draft. Same thing with a chapter goal. Like I would write one chapter a week, and then sometimes if I'm feeling really sluggish about it, it would be like, say, 2,000 words a day. So it just depends, but nowadays I try not to limit myself because I am in the editing process, and if I give myself a goal and don't meet it, I feel bad, and then I don't get anything done because then I feel bad and I have to cry it out for me to stop feeling bad. Really, this entire thing is about how often I cry. Question 13 is, are there any quirky things you do to make your projects more fun? I pace. Is that quirky? I am the kind of person that has to like walk around and like do other things, so I pace a lot. That's really it. Chapter 14, do you work on multiple projects at one time? Yes and no. I have multiple projects on the side right now, and I have started them, like I have first chapters for them, but I haven't gotten into it because I want to focus on this main project, as well as I am trying to develop them out of the bones that they were before, and it's really hard because my brain wants to go one way, but nostalgia is taking me another way. So sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But when I take breaks from writing is a time when I like focus on like those other projects, and I do plan them out throughout the week, if that makes sense. Like I'll be writing my main work in progress, and then over the weekend or something, I'll open up OneNote and like plan. But I haven't like formally written anything for them in like a couple weeks. Chapter 15, how often do you research what you're writing? Very often. Because I'm writing something in situations where I don't have, like, I can't fight. So I have to research how people fight with swords. I have to research, like, read books on, like, how to do that and, like, how other writers do that. I have a non-binary character, so I have been heavily researching how to properly, like, write about them. I'm not writing, like, their coming out story or anything, but I'm writing about how the proper way to represent them and not be a complete asshole. I have a character that goes blind, so I've been researching how blindness works for them, as well as like major depression. And like while I do have depression as well, I kind of try to focus on like how things like differentiate their depression from mine. So it just kind of depends, but I do go into research a lot. I go into research a lot. Like I could spend hours on research because that's all I did in college was research. So I have to take breaks from that too, which is why I have like a lot of links. I took like 2 weeks to research different Slavic accents and like how to mesh the words together to create a language. So if that helps, if that figures out how often I research, that is how. Now question 16 is, how do you organize your projects? I do a lot. Like I said, I do outlines. My index cards are my favorite friends. I have my bullet journal, which is kind of like my on-the-go thing, where like if I don't have my phone or I don't want to pull out my phone and distract myself, I have pages for story ideas. I'll write like little excerpts or like little snippets in there and then transfer it over. But for right now, what's been helping me a lot is OneNote, because it's like I can have it on my phone, I have it on my laptop, I take it everywhere I go essentially, and if I have an idea, I write it down in there and I don't have to worry about like losing it or whatever. I just hit Control F when I'm on my laptop and look it up. Question 17 is, do you punish or reward yourself for meeting or not meeting your writing goals? I don't do that anymore because I have found that when I punish myself, it doesn't really work out for me. I just get lazier and not likely to write. Sometimes I do reward myself. If I have, like, say I meant to only finish 1 chapter and I finished 2, or I meant to reach, like, say 1,500 and I reached 2,500 words, right? 3,000 words, math. Then I go ahead and like give myself like a little chocolate croissant or like Starbucks, but it's nothing like major where I'm like, it's like, oh yeah, if I finish this, then I can go out to the movies, or if I don't finish this, I don't buy books for a month. It's just like little tiny things. Like maybe I'll give myself a nap, and if I don't finish it, then no nap for me. But either way, I wouldn't be giving a nap because I'd be doing other things. I'd be trying to finish the chapter, so it kind of works for me. And question 18 is: are there any works similar to your projects that you look for and use for inspiration and/or comparison? No. I have been very good about avoiding things with dragons in them, or like similar situations with like reluctant leaders and like that kind of like sphere, because once I start comparing, then that's all I'm gonna do. And I find that when I compare, I try to be like, well, this writer did this really well and I like this, and I start molding it into my story, and it stops being mine. It becomes like a weird offshoot fan fiction of that. So I just don't try to do it. Like, I'll read a dragon story every now and again. I will read a high fantasy with reluctant leaders, but I don't think about like, oh yeah, if I do this, if like this is what this writer did, and I should like try to steer clear from that. Like, I don't do that. I think it's just, it opens up a can of worms for my anxiety that I don't want. So I just try to avoid it altogether. And if I read a story that sounds similar to that, I block my story out. I tend to read stories for my own pleasure and for my own enjoyment, and I don't want to start comparing. Like, I will take notes like, oh yeah, I like how they did this description, but that's about as far as I'll go. I don't want to compare anything. I don't want to look to inspiration for anything. Whatever comes from my brain has come from my brain, and it shouldn't have come from anyone else. Aside from like little inspirations from like video games and all that stuff, but they're not like similar to the entire story, if that makes sense. Question number 19 is: how early do you wait to start looking for and hiring editors? I don't. Because I don't know the nuances of the editing situation. I know that typically like you get an agent and the agent helps look for an editor, and I don't want to go to an editor and have them swindle me, because like I said, I know some editors can be really smarmy that way, so I just don't want to do it. I have my friends who are really good, who like read for pleasure and know what they like and like kind of know where I want the story to go, and like can give me pointers, and that's as far as I go. Like, I let them edit, I let myself edit, and that's it. I don't want to look for an editor super early because I am a perfectionist. I like my works to be as perfect as I can get them without someone else, without like having to hire out, because I'm also broke. But I'm sure in the future, if I get published, I will have an editor and I will have an answer to that question. But right now, no editor. It's just all mine. And finally, question number 19. If you finished your first draft of manuscript, tell us how you felt afterwards. Or if you're not through with your first draft yet, tell us how you're feeling about it at the moment. I have finished my first draft, and I remember when I finished it, I sent it to my friend, and like, I cried. Happy tears this time. It's not frustration or sad or annoyed tears. They were happy tears because this story has gone through a lot of random little changes in the middle of everything. I was going through a really big change in my life when I was in the middle of writing it. I had written it when I was very lost, so when I finished it, it was very cathartic, because I was like, I finished it for the first time. Like, you know that scene in Set It Up where she was like, I finished it. I finished an article, and it's like she took up and crumpled up the chips, like threw them on the floor, and was like, I finished! That was how I felt, just with a little bit more tears. And finally, question 21 is tag a friend. I was not tagged in this, and I don't feel the need to push you to tag anyone, because I never do. But if you want to write, if you are a writer and you want to do this, please feel free to tag yourself and do the video, or do it on like a blog or something, or your Instagram. But yeah, just let me know and leave those links to those videos or whatever, or your comments down below. That is it for this video. All of my social media links will be down below, as well as the links to the original video that I found will be down there as well, and the questions if you wanted those. But until next time, I'll talk to you guys next week, and I hope you guys are having a wonderful week, and I'll see you then. Bye!